father, the kingslayer who had sought refuge among the Trojans. That desire, too, had been met, though he'd felt little satisfaction in seeing Athedas take his own life. And the price of glory and vengeance had been the lives of his daughter, his squire, and countless comrades in arms. But there was one compensation for all that he had suffered in the bloody decade-long conflict. "What are you thinking?" A soft hand slipped into his, and he turned to see Astynome beside him. Her cheeks were smeared with dirt to conceal their softness, while the leather breastplate and long woolen cloak she wore hid her womanly curves from unwelcome eyes. Only the tresses of her black hair, tied into a messy bun at the back of her head, betrayed her true sex. "Come on, tell me what's on your mind," she insisted with a smile, her Trojan accent broad and exotic to Eperitus's ears. She reached up with her other hand and ran her fingers along the unfamiliar smoothness of his chin. He took the hand and raised her wrist to his lips. The fine, sun-bleached hairs of her forearm were soft against his newly shaven skin. "Ithaca. I was thinking of Ithaca, of you and me and the farm I'm going to build for us. A team of oxen, some pigs, a couple of slaves to help me about the place. And our children. Of little Odysseus sitting on the oxen's back while his father drives up the ground with the plough. Of Iphigenia holding the distaff while her mother spins the wool. So, we'll call her Iphigenia then." "Of course we will. But you weren't thinking of Ithaca at all, were you? Your eyes betray you. There's no joy in them, only sadness." "I wish I had been thinking of Ithaca," he said, gazing once more at the smouldering ruins of Troy. "But how can I look to the future when we're still here?" Surrounded by the ghosts of the war, he thought, as he stared down at the rolling meadows that led to the fords of the Scamander, his mind's eye could still see the great battles that had taken place there. The Greek and Trojan armies grinding against each other like great millstones, the long ranks of spearmen locked in the centre, and the cavalry swarming on the flanks. Kings and captains riding this way and that in their chariots, bringing death wherever they went. He recalled the duel between Menelaus and Paris, fought as the armies sat in rows watching them, and the time Achilles had herded hundreds of Trojans into the fast-flowing Scamander, slaying them without compassion among the tamarisks and willows, forcing them down the banks to drown under the weight of their own armour. He'd witnessed Achilles kill Hector before the Scaean gate, only to be killed there himself a few days later by an arrow from Paris's bow. The same ground had drunk Paris's blood after he'd been shot down by Philoctetes, and so the killing had gone on, death after death, until the gods brought the war to its conclusion, the gods and Odysseus. Eperitus looked a little further along the ridge to the temple of Thymbrian Apollo. It was formed from a double ring of plane trees, dense enough to block all but a few glimmers of light from the westering sun behind them. Its roof was formed from their closely intertwined branches, and in the breeze the leaves whispered like the voices of the dead. An ox and cart waited a few paces from the narrow entrance, the beast's head bent low to the parched grass. Beyond it, Eperitus could see the sunlight glinting on the expanse of the Aegean, the great sea that separated the Greeks from their native lands and which would soon be bearing their fleets back home again. Astynome must have been thinking the same thing. "We won't be here much longer," she said, "and then we can forget all about Troy and start again." "But Troy is your home." "Troy no longer exists. From now on my home is wherever you are. But if we're to start again, build a home and have a family, then you must leave the shadow of the past." "My father's dead," he answered, "and if you're worried that I still blame you for luring me into his trap—" "I'm not talking about Eperitus or what I did. I'm talking about Agamemnon. Has there been a single day since he murdered your daughter that you haven't longed to take revenge? Though Iphigenia's mother made you swear not to kill him, I know the thought of his going unpunished still haunts you. So now I'm scared you'll do something rash before the fleets go their separate ways and you lose your chance forever." Her intuition caught him unawares. She trapped his gaze with her own, challenging him to refute her accusation, but he forced himself to look away once more to the tumbled and fire-blackened remains of Troy. He stared hard at the hundreds upon hundreds of beached and anchored galleys in the large harbour, their denuded masts moving gently with the motion of the water, like breeze-blown stalks of corn. Inevitably his eyes were drawn towards the mass of tents that had been pitched that morning on the plain before the city walls, and to the largest tent of them all, the tent of Agamemnon. As he looked, he saw a horseman splashing across the